Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live episode of Level Up Law, where every Tuesday at noon we here at South Carolina Legal Services are leveling up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in. I'm Senior Staff Attorney Susan Ingalls here with our producer Kenneth Elliott, and you are viewing live Attorney Tiffney Love in our Rock Hill office. Tiffany is our lead attorney on barriers to employment, and today, as part of our ongoing series in Second Chances Month, Tiffany's going to go over information to make sure that you have proper identification. For those of you who are new to the series this month, it is Second Chances Month, and the theme is getting back on the road to work. We already had two episodes this month, April 5th, getting back on the road, tips to restore your driver's license in South Carolina, and on April 12th, how to modify child support obligations in South Carolina. So today, Tiffany is going to get you back on the road to work by giving you some tips on how to make sure that you have the necessary identifications, and we're excited to have her here to do that for us today. But before we get started, as always, we do want you to know that this is not legal advice. It's just general information for the public. If you do need the help of a lawyer on this or any other topic, you can call our intake line here at South Carolina Legal Services or apply online. And that information is going to be provided to you at the end of Tiffany's presentation today. And also, as a reminder, all of our episodes for Level Up Law are posted by our wonderful producer, Kenneth Elliott, to the Level Up Law playlist on our YouTube channel. And that's usually within about 24 hours. So check it out. There's a lot of great episodes on there that can be helpful to you. Now, Tiffany can answer some general questions today if there is time at the conclusion of the presentation. So if you do have questions, put them in the question box. For those of you who are watching this as a recording on YouTube, feel free to put in the comments any questions that you might have, or even requests for future subject matter for us. And again, we will post a recording of today's episode on that YouTube channel, but also be sure to check out our social media. You can like, subscribe, get all the up-to-date information that we provide here on Level Up Law, and also information about all of our other database of resources for you to access. And all of those, again, will also be found on that last slide in today's presentation. So thanks everyone for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Tiffney Love.
Thank you, Susie. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Susie mentioned my name is Tiffney Love. I'm a staff attorney in our Rock Hill office, and today's presentation is Do You Have the Proper Identification? And it's tips on how to obtain necessary identification for employment purposes. The goal of this month is it's Second Chances Month, so we're trying to instruct people on how to remove barriers to employment. Susie did mention this as well, as how the past 2 weeks we've been discussing driver's license restoration and child support modifications, and now we're at obtaining the proper identification for work purposes, and next week is going to be clearing criminal records. The problem here that we have is that lacking the proper identification acts as almost a complete barrier to employment. So what it does is it's not only a barrier to employment, but it places the person in almost this cycle that ultimately cuts off access to employment, not only employment, but health and social services as well. So it's a cycle of not having access. Why do you need documentation? Why do any of us need documentation? You know, it can be for work purposes, which we're here to discuss today. You know, anytime you get a job application, you may also be asked to provide a copy of a state-issued, government-issued photo identification, social security card, birth certificate. Same as when you're applying for school or you're trying to enroll your children in school. If you want to travel by plane, whether that's domestic or internationally, you may need a state-issued or government-issued photo ID or a passport. If you're trying to drive almost on any road in the United States, you need a state issued ID. If you want to vote, you need a photo ID, and even entering government buildings, you may need documentation. But specifically, we're going to discuss only these few listed today, which is going to be the real ID and also a standard identification card, birth certificates, and social security cards. So if you have additional issues with these documents listed, besides just obtaining them, I'm going to suggest that you check out some of our other Level Up Law episodes on YouTube, or even at the end of our presentation, taking down our number website and applying for services to see if we can help you specifically. So if one of these documents has your incorrect name, you don't have a birth certificate, you need a delayed birth certificate, it needs to be corrected, or your social security card has the incorrect name, and I definitely think you should reach out to us individually or check out some of our other episodes, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to start with a real ID just because this is the most useful in my opinion, and it kind of encompasses what you need for most of those categories listed earlier. It satisfies those requirements. So the Real ID Act of 2005 was passed by the U.S. Congress to standardize government issued identifications. It's a federal law that is going to affect all federal agencies, federal buildings, military bases, and it's going to affect you boarding domestic and commercial flights. So essentially, the purpose of the Real ID is to make the identification process more uniform between the states. It's kind of a law that was passed in reaction to 9/11. The Real ID law is going to go into place on May 2nd, 2023 in South Carolina. So you have a little over a year to get that little gold star on the top of your driver's license. And the ID is valid for a total of 8 years. The process can be very tedious and you need a lot of documents to apply. So I definitely suggest the earlier the better if you can start compiling these documents. For proof of identity, you'll need to supply original documents only, no photocopies. And so you'll have to have a proof of your South Carolina address. You're going to need two documents that show your South Carolina address. That can be an unexpired South Carolina beginner's permit, a driver's license, photo ID, or vehicle registration that shows your current address. It can also be an unexpired South Carolina concealed weapons permit, a voter registration card, or a county tax or property bill or receipt for your car or your home, state and federal tax records, school records, and a social security check or annual statement. These all will be documents that you can provide as proof of your South Carolina address. And again, you need two. You also have to take proof of your U.S. citizenship, your identity, and date of birth. You only need to take one of these. That can be your birth certificate, an unexpired U.S. passport or U.S. passport card, a certificate of U.S. naturalization, a U.S. government issued consular report or of birth abroad, or a certificate of citizenship. You only need one. If you've had your name change, your name has changed anytime since birth, whether that was because of marriage, divorce, you just had it changed for some other particular reason, legally had it changed, then you need documents supporting that name change. So you will need to provide a valid, unexpired U.S. passport or U.S. passport card in your current legal name as you identify instead of your other name. You provide the legal documents of your name change that links your name on your identity document to your present name. So you have to be able to show that link. And again, that can be done by using a marriage license, a divorce decree, or even a court order. Any documents that you supply can be no more than 90 days old. So if you have a utility bill, financial statement, home mortgage monthly statement or deed, insurance documentation from a company licensed to do business in South Carolina, a current letter of employment or payroll stub, U.S. Postal Service letter or item delivered by the post office to your home. If you're a parolee, you have a letter from your parole officer or a letter from the director of South Carolina Social Welfare Institution, or any other documents that are issued by federal, state, and municipal government that have your address on them. You can use any of these. They just can be no more than 90 days old. If they are, then you won't be allowed to proceed with the process of getting a real ID. Now keep in mind, you don't have to have a real ID. You don't need a real ID to do the following. It's best that you do have it, but there are certain things that you won't need a real ID for. So you don't have to have the gold star to vote. You don't have to have that gold star to apply for or receive federal benefits such as Veterans Affairs or Social Security Administration benefits that you are already entitled to. You can enter some federal buildings that don't require a ID, such as a post office. You can still go into the post office, that's fine. You can access hospitals and receive life-saving services. They're not going to prevent you from coming into a hospital if you don't have the real ID or that gold star. You can also still participate in law enforcement proceedings. So luckily, you still get to serve on federal juries and testify in federal court without a real ID. If you don't get a real ID, you can also get an identification card, which is free. To be eligible, you can't have a South Carolina driver's license or a beginner's permit. You have to live in the state of South Carolina. You have to be at least 5 years or older. You can provide documents to prove your identity to get an ID. Some of those documents that I listed before, you can also use those documents to get a standard identification card. So you do not have driving privileges if you have an ID. It's just the photo identification card, a state issued card, okay? Any other driver's licenses or cards that you previously had that may have been issued by another state, those are canceled. The application for an ID card is on the SCDMV's website. You can find that at scdmvonline.com. And I actually have the form number listed on the screen, and you can print it there and send it in or take it into your local DMV office. You have to provide your social security number, and it's important that that card is correct because your social security number must match whatever's on file with the Social Security Administration. You have to show all required documents and to prove your identity, such as a birth certificate or proof of physical address. Now, that's two of those. And any documents, again, to show any legal name changes, like I mentioned earlier, for the real ID. And it can be renewed online. So if you can't get a real ID, a standard identification card may be the next best thing for now. Yeah, not everyone has a reason to have a real ID, but it's going to be give you more access to things if you do have it. The next thing I want to talk about obtaining are birth certificates. And birth certificates are issued by the South Carolina Vital Records offices. You can request a certified copy of your birth certificate if you are at least 18 years old and the person named on the certificate. If you are the parent of the person named on the birth certificate, or you're the legal guardian or legal representative of one of those two categories mentioned above. You can obtain a birth certificate in a few ways. You can do it online. It generally takes 5 to 7 business days to process the request for a birth certificate. And again, that's just to process the request, so it may take longer to get it. It's $17 for a certified birth certificate and $3 for any additional copies that you may want. You're going to be asked to submit a copy of valid government, school, or employer issued photo identification. So even if you're just applying online, you still have to submit documentation to verify your identity before they will send you the birth certificate. You can go in person to the DHEC State Vital Records Office, which is at 2600 Bull Street in Columbia, South Carolina. You can also, on DHEC's website, they have a regional vital records offices link, and it can show you where the regional offices are some offices may be closer to you, and you can also go in those offices and get loan form birth certificates. The average process time when you walk into DHEC or one of those offices may be 30 to 45 minutes, but it can vary depending on if there are more people in there on that day. You'll need to complete the application form. You can complete it ahead of time. It's on their website. You can print it and complete it and take it with you. Or when you go in, they'll have those applications ready for you to fill out there. You provide a valid government, school, employer issued photo ID. It's $12 if you go in person to get it, and it's non-refundable. So even if they don't give you your birth certificate, you can't get the $12 search fee back. It's there. You can also submit an application by mail. Same thing, you can print it off of the website and mail it into DHEC, again at that 2600 Bull Street address. You mail the completed application form. You have to submit a photocopy of a valid government, school, or employer issued ID again. There's also an option to request a birth certificate by phone. So can't do it online, in person, by mail. You can call in and request it, and it's a similar process. It's $17. It's also, I think it takes about the same amount of time as it does to mail it, and they're actually open 24/7, so you can request that at any time over the phone through the Vital Records Agency. The last documentation that kind of pops up that asks about a lot are Social Security cards. And they're issued by the U.S. Social Security Administration, not DHEC. You can visit their website at www.ssa.gov, and you can also give them a call too at 866-964-7594 to request your Social Security card. Most of the time with Social Security cards, it's just that we can't find them when we need them. So what you can do when that comes up is you can request a replacement card online. You can do so again at that same website, the ssa.gov. You just have to be 18 years or older. You cannot be requesting a name change or any other change to the card by requesting a replacement online. You're just strictly asking for a copy of your replacement Social Security card. And you will have to submit your driver's license or a state-issued ID card to get your Social Security card. And that's all the information I have today. I just wanted to go over how to get your real ID, a standard identification card, birth certificate, and Social Security card, just because these are generally the documents that you need when you're trying to get employment. But again, if you have any specific issues, if you need a correction to your birth certificate or don't have all the documents necessary to get these, please feel free to reach out to us to see if we can help you. Turning it back over to you, Susie.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. And for our viewing audience and any listening audience, you have on your screen the information of how to get in touch with South Carolina Legal Services. You can apply for our services Monday through Thursday from 9 to 6 on the telephone. We have intake specialists standing by during those hours, but also you can apply online 24/7. And that information is here at lawhelp.org/sc-online-intake. And that's a great way to do it if you can't call between those hours of 9 and 6 from Monday through Thursday. But we have great intake specialists ready to take down your information, and hopefully you'll be eligible for our services and we'll be able to help you out. But also, we have 6 other ways to access the information that we have available to the public. Our website is sclegal.org, and also our website that has a lot of resources for you, lawhelp.org/sc. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. You can find us at SC Legal Services on YouTube. And we have a Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram. And although it's not shown here, we also have LinkedIn. So you can follow us on all those, and we encourage you to do that so that you can see all the information that we're putting out and all the announcements and events that are going on. And I will mention that on our website, fclegal.org, we have a calendar. And on that calendar, not only will you find the upcoming episodes of Level Up Law, but you'll also find clinics that we're doing around the state. It might be a divorce clinic or a expungement or pardon clinic. It could be a debt collection clinic. We do any number of clinics around the state, and that's a good place to go and find out what's coming up. Also, our Facebook page keeps up with that very well. So we encourage everybody to like, subscribe, and follow. And that's, really important to us. Now, if you found today's episode helpful and you know it's going to be helpful to someone else or just to other folks in general, please do go to our YouTube channel tomorrow at South Carolina Legal Services and share this broadcast out. We want as many people as possible to get this important information. It may seem very basic, but it's so great to have this just basic information of how to get your different forms of ID, because that's going to be really important. And, while you're there at the YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe. Not just like the video, but subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll always know when we're posting a new video. So let me just take a moment now as we close to thank Attorney Tiffney Love in our Rock Hill office. It's a great presentation on the proper identification and how to get it, just the very basics. Tiffany, thank you so much. That was great information that people will really find useful. So thank you very much. And I also want to thank our audience for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support of the show. And again, just when you're viewing this as a recording, or if you go back later after watching live today, just put anything that you'd like to know about, or questions you have, or topics you wish we'd cover, just put those in the comments below this video, and we'll be sure to always be watching for that. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Level Up Law on Tuesday at noon. We'll be having our final episode in the Second Chances Month series on getting back on the road to work. And that final episode is going to be about removing barriers to employment by way of expungements and pardons. So that's always an important topic in Second Chances Month and throughout the year. So definitely stay tuned for that. And we thank Tiffany and the Employment Law Unit at South Carolina Legal Services for bringing us this great series. So thanks for tuning in again today on Level Up Law. And that concludes today's webinar. Thanks again, Tiffany.
Thank you.